the current seller is not going to do nothing. But if there's problems with the property, how we're going to find out? We're sometimes we're busy. That's why we got this guy. Right? Yeah. You check with the village, right?
Yeah.
You check what violation there is.
Yeah.
Right. You deal with all the
most
villages.
of them you have them all marked as is, so the buyer's got to take a little bit more of the risk.
But what does that mean? If as is. Actually, let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's talk about as is on the contract.
Listen, we have you here. We want the juice. Okay.
Because we get this all the time. Because we're just getting it on from like, oh, what they do as is, and like, buyer's like, what do you mean, Frank, as is? And I'm like, well, it means as is, but it really means nothing. I don't know. At least that's my answer.
No, it means a lot, Frank.
It means a lot.
You're wrong. It means.
Like,
let's talk about it.
Okay, so I feel like in every transaction,
go ahead.
Like they're like,
I'm ready.
Go ahead. Okay, what it means for you?
So
what it means for you?
Team Frank or Team Anthony? Or Team Greg?
So
means
it's
nothing.
in the contract. It's one of like the bigger paragraphs. It's like the last page, right? Like I think the second last page, and it's got all this text in there talking about
page 11.
Page 11, right? So it's like the last page.
The Main Street contract.
7.0.
The Chicago contract. Forget about it.
The 7.0. So they're kind of trying to get the attention of like sellers viewed one way, buyers viewed another way.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
So seller thinks it says I ain't gonna do nothing, right? And then the buyers kind of viewing it like, so can I ask for anything? Like, is that all right for me?
They could still ask.
So then you get questions asked, and sometimes the seller's like, well, I marked it as is. I shouldn't have to do anything. Why do you even bother responding? I'm like, but you still got to play the game. Like, you still got to close the transaction, right? That's what I think. Like, so I don't know to the point of the as is. Like, I know there is meaning in it, but like what actually happens in real situations, sometimes I feel like it's different than what like the law was set up to do.
Exactly. So it doesn't. So at the end of the day, like it's writing in there, but at the end, go ahead, Greg.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's fine.
I don't know. Maybe Adam will play Team Greg. Technically, right, Adam? Technically, if you mark as is, there's no more recourse.
No.
Like, so if they did not, they're like, oh, I forgot to disclose that my basement gets 3 feet of water. And the judge is going to say, hey, you mark it, you sold as is. I'm sorry. Sorry, buyer. You bought it as is. There's no recourse. If you do not mark it, correct me if I'm wrong.
I think you're correct. If that's malicious intent, you're getting malicious intent.
I'm just telling you things could happen.
Well, the lawsuits sometimes come down to like sometimes the attorneys that do the litigation part, they don't even want to see the contract. They just want to see the residential disclosure report.
Okay.
So sometimes they don't even know about the as-is part. So like if it actually gets to it, they want to see that residential report and see if they lied on there.
So that's hold on. So you got every time you sell, unless you're a foreclosure. Or an estate sale, I believe, right? You have to fill out a questionnaire. So that's what you're talking about, right?
The disclosure. Okay.
Yeah. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's what I'm saying. The litigation attorney I work with, he always tells me, I'm like, what do you want? You want my attorney review? Do you want the contract? He just wants that disclosure to see what they mark yes or, and like everyone marks no or not applicable. Yeah. Like rarely.
But think about it in a foreclosure when the bank makes you sign as is, it's because there's no recourse against the bank. I'm not aware.
Yeah, but that's because they don't have.
Technically, the seller could say too, I'm not aware. So that's why.
Oh yeah.
Don't get me wrong. If I represent the seller, I want everybody to sign as is. But I represent the buyer. Yeah, but if I actually do not want that.
If it's not as is, they're still not going to win.
What do you mean?
If you try to sue them, I mean, what's the difference?
You could if they're aware. Listen,
if they're aware on both sides.
Let's talk about one example. Really good example is a friend of ours. He bought a house in Elk Grove, and they did not disclose there was a tank under his porch. Okay, you know what happened? They didn't disclose, but he was able to prove that they were aware because he was getting letters. The old seller was getting letters from the city hall, so they knew before the sale, after the sale, that there was a tank, a gas tank, right? The old school gas tank under whatever in his backyard. So when he went to do work, guess what? He contacted a lawyer. They went back to the old seller, and the seller had to. They knew they would lose.
He was able to prove because they hit it. You can't.
Correct. But I'm saying like there's still like recourse.
Yeah, but I mean, if they signed as is, I think they would still have.
I think if he signed as is, no.
I disagree.
Let's talk to the attorney here.
So once closing over as is, not as is, like if you're trying to send some letter asking the seller to come back and do something, that's almost like mission impossible.
But what about they take you to court?
If they take you to court, but a lot of times once they hear about like the cost of litigation, attorney charges this, he wants upfront money, charges hourly rate.
Yeah, but if it's something like the tank thing, that would have been 20 grand, then I'll spend 5 grand.
It goes through, but most of the time the people are kind of like, they get a little deterred by the amount of money it costs, and then people just kind of like back out like, it's unfortunate.
I just don't think as is a get out of my property's a disaster-free card. Like they're not.
No, it's not. But it does have a meaning.
It does have meaning, so it goes. It could go a lot of different ways. It just depends how far the clients want to.
Basically, if I buy something as is, I do inspection. I could ask for anything I want, and I can.
And that's
back
what
out.
happens.
And I can back out, and then I could still get a credit. You don't have to, but if you decide 9 as is. You could do 9 as is, and you could still deny me the credit. Doesn't mean it's gonna be perfect. So what is it? That's where I come from.
Yeah, I understand.
That's what I see.
You're more old school, like like in Italy, you just buy how it is, and you don't.
No, I'm not saying
that. It's different. You're
just saying it's the same rules. It's not the different.
You're like the buyer from 1950, buddy. This is a different world, all right?
I will say.
What do you think, madam?
Adam, I put an offer on your place. I say as is.
Adam,
and I say, okay, I want $2,000 credit. What are you gonna do?
The problem is you've created leverage because we've been on contract for a week or so.
So then you're gonna give it to me.
It's gonna look bad if I relist, so I'm probably gonna have to do
something.
Something. Yeah.
And if I'm not as is and ask for $2,000, you're gonna. I mean, if you're.
Yeah.
We're going. I think.
My point is, it doesn't mean you can't ask for stuff.
The main thing, either way, the main reason we talked about as is that if you're buying a distressed property. Right? Or if you're a seller and you know you have all these violations, technically do not worry because you could sell it as is. You don't have to do nothing.
Sometimes the villages will make you sign a form that says you take all these responsibilities.
But that's why we have you, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but
no,
that's why I have you too. So you deal with the villages, you talk with the villages.
And they give
and every village in Illinois, right, Adam? You work in different places.
I do.
They're different.
They are.
They all have different requirements.
Different requirements. Some villages come out. Some villages don't come out. Like here, we're in Chicago here.
Chicago does nothing.
Chicago doesn't do nothing. Hey, keep it quiet. Keep it quiet. Let's not raise red flags. But next to Chicago here is Norwich. Norwich is kind of easy, not as bad.
Howard Heights.
Howard Heights. Sorry, I love you, Howard Heights, but
they're rough.
Man, there's like 5 inspectors come out.
2-hour window.
Electric, plumber. Pretty soon they're taking my DNA test. And it's okay. But so it's tough. And Anthony got to deal with that, right? And then we got to more the buyer, the seller.
Yeah, you guys know. Sometimes I deal with agents that have no clue. Like you guys are more aware, so it helps.
Yeah, we make them. Yeah, because we like here at XR. I think, we like to. We're really open book. There's nothing hiding. We tell you everything. The fees there is, the title fees, the commission fee, everything. There's nothing. There's nothing to hide.
If you sell as is, you still might have to make concessions to the buyer and give credit.
You sell as is, yeah, it's true. Yeah. I tell them, or I take a piece of my commission. I gotta give it to them. That's what it comes out.
Whatever. I'm just saying.
I'll say on the seller side. First, I'll say Howard Heights. We love you. My buddy works there. So.
Yeah.
I love Howard Heights. It's a great town.
Shout out to your buddy.
Shout out to Howard Heights.
Buddy Ron. Love you, bud.
Hey, Ron, come with some business.
When it comes to selling, okay, if I have a clean house,
okay,
and if I feel like there's no reason to hide anything, I try to avoid marketing the house as is. I feel like selling a house as is kind of gives it a little bit of a black eye.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're not going to get as much money as you potentially could.
If you put as is, me as an investor, I'm going to lowball you.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, wow, as is. And some realtors do that.
And they don't know.
They don't want to deal with it. And they're like, oh, just show it as is, right? But we don't here, right? You don't.
That's the thing. A lot of realtors that I don't agree with, I think it's an easy way out.
Yeah.
Or they sell the seller on it thinking that they can
it's a good idea.
lower the price a little bit by saying they're not going to take anything, even though, like Frank said,
but it's not true.
Even as is, you can still have to give up something during the attorney review.
I think you're setting up the expectation, and then the seller, they do the inspection, then they get a laundry list. They're like, what the heck? We're selling this as is, Frank.
I told the sellers we could be firm. I'm like, we could be firm.
You can't
we'll say, hey, listen, forget about you, and we're not giving you nothing. But they have the right to cancel. They got the right to ask for stuff. Attorney approval. Okay, let's be realistic. An attorney approval, right? The first 5 days. How many days do you have? 3, 5 days. 5 days. Whenever you get to it, right?
Yeah, the 5th day.
You could cancel for no reason. So we could have a whole contract. You could say attorney not approved. I'm like, what the F? This attorney. I'm like, not approved for no reason.
No reason at all.
Right?
Yeah.
So it means nothing.
So I feel like
now means nothing.
I would rather take the long road, make it a little harder on myself, try to get my client more money.
Good.
By not pushing the as is.
I like it.
Because also, let's think if you have an amateur buyer, amateur agent that's showing a property to somebody, and then the client says, "What does as is mean?" and they have to explain it on the fly. It really could turn a lot of people off. Quickly.
Absolutely.
So like a funny thing to the point of as is though, like what you're saying, it was like a buyer will be like, I knew it was as is, but I didn't know it needed a new roof.
Yeah.
I didn't know it needed a new furnace.
That's the thing. That's
so that's not as is, Frank, right? That was as is when I knew the roof and furnace were okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
true,
now
that's
that's sometimes that language come. I'm like, no, let's ask for it. Let's go. What are they gonna do?
But
You know?
yeah, that's true. You could always ask. But if they worked with an XR agent, we would have given them a heads up and noticed the roof was bad.
Yeah,
I'm just saying,
from
you
the
know?
start.
From the start. We don't waste your time, right?
Stunned.